Good morning. All right, can everybody hear and see me? Let me know. Put a hand up and yes, okay, Nick, that was quick. Very good. Perfect. All right, welcome to the Google My Business webinar that we run once every 2 weeks. I'm just going to open up the chat here quickly. Can everybody tell me what sort of business you're running and what your expertise or experience is at this point with Google My Business? Because that'll give me, excuse me, that'll give me an indication of what to cover. And there's only like 3 of us today. Small crowd. Nice and quiet. And in the meantime, I'm going to start sharing my screen so that we can jump straight in. Let me know if you can see that. It should work. And normally the way this works is during the session, feel free to ask any questions in the chat as you go, and I'll check the chat from time to time to make sure that I can answer those. And then usually probably 10 minutes before we end, I'll open the floor for some additional questions, and yeah, we'll take it from there. All right, so you're service-based, you set up Google My Business, but you want to know how to optimize. Perfect. And what sort of service and what sort of location? And you've got handmade earrings and line bees. Okay, no experience at all. All right, cool. And then there's accounting and audit practice. Perfect. So you're all basically businesses that can potentially benefit from getting local clients, right? And let me just turn that on, do not disturb. Perfect. Okay, cool. Okay, so Google My Business, in a nutshell. So Google My Business is essentially a tool that Google provides anyone that has a small business or as an online store or a physical store with a location. And I'll show you sort of what that looks like when people are searching. And I'm sure you've seen this all before. So if I were to look for, and I usually use my client, one of my private clients as an example here. He's a tile cleaning business. Now, as a tile cleaning business, obviously, essentially what people would be looking for is the main keyword, tile cleaning, and then the location. So quite often it's service plus location, or product or item plus location, or sometimes people say near me as well, because essentially Google can pretty much figure out roughly where you're located, and they will give you the results based on the location that you're in. So you can see here I'm in Perth myself. And you can see on the very top left, and this actually looks a bit different today. So let me just double check something. I think Google might have made a change because normally there should be ads in here. Give me 1 second. Are there any ads down there? Yeah, very interesting. So if I were to look for, I don't know, kid shoes near me, and that's only because my kids were asking for shoes this morning. No, that's probably not no. You know what, I'm going to skip that. Normally what happens here on the very top, you'll have ads, and at the bottom you'll have ads as well. In this case, there's only one ad. So chances are at the moment, people are not actually advertising for these keywords, or their budget might have depleted. Give me 1 second, please. Apologies, I've got 2 sick kids at home and they're making a lot of background noise. All right. So essentially, normally this would have ads at the very top, and then the business placement, the 3 business placements will be underneath that. And then the rest of the first page here would be what we would call organic results or SEO-driven results. You can see there's 1 ad in here, but I'm curious why there's no ads showing today. So potentially they've run out of budget, or they set a different time. Yeah, no, that's not helping. Maybe Sydney. Yeah, interesting. All right, I'll have a dig into that because normally it looks like Google might have changed that up. Anyway, so if we go back to this result here, so obviously you can imagine that the higher up you are on that page, the more likely it is that you're going to get a click. Plus, these business listings actually have a more visible sort of layout. So you get obviously the star ratings, how many years in business, phone numbers, opening hours, one of the lines that is a testimonial. So there's a lot of incentive here for somebody to click on those. Now, if you go down to the normal SEO, you'll see that there's sort of less, although they've added some photos here now. So Google is always changing the layouts. Every time I log in and I do this session, something has changed. But essentially, this is a more attractive thing to click on rather than one of these links here. So, and because Google really prominently puts it on top of those organic listings, you're basically going to get more clicks. Now, I'm just going to jump into one of these profiles, and this is obviously one that I manage for a client, but essentially what a profile would look like. Let's have a look here. We're going to see this has changed as well. So they've shuffled around the photos at the top. Okay, interesting. All right, so essentially you can see some of the main things that in this profile, and a profile should be treated as a mini website essentially. There, I've locked them out. So it should be treated as a mini website. And what I mean by that is essentially you can really optimize this profile and with the content that's on the profile, but also links and citations that you can build. And I'm going to get to that in a minute. You can see here that the main thing that'll show up are photos and then some call to actions. So people can click here on the website, they can save this as a bookmark, or they can click on call. Now there's a few more options. You can get quote, get directions, or send message sometimes. Then those are things that we can enable in your profile. And I'll show you quickly what the stats look like when you sort of enable those things. Now, obviously, service areas are important. So this is highlighted straight away. Opening hours are important, and people can click on here as well to make a phone call. If you have products, you can add products in here. Now, we had a product in here which we just tested, and essentially we're not going to use it because it doesn't work in his specific case, because every job is different in terms of the size of the floors that he has to do. So it's not really a one-off. Sorry, give me one more second, please. It's one of those days. Anyway, okay, so essentially this doesn't work for him, but if you have a business with services or items, you can always place those on here. People can click on the learn more button, or they can click on a phone number there, and they can actually get in touch with you once they've learned a little bit more about what you're trying to sell. I'm just going to jump back out of this, and I'm going to get into some of these listings, and I'll show you. Am I logged in? I am not logged in. Let me jump in here quickly. If I remember my password. Yes, lucky. All right. And any questions so far? Because yeah, like I said, treat it as a mini website. And quite often people get a little bit confused about that because it's not really a website, but you can treat it as such because it has the same functionality. Okay, that's interesting. Once I log in, actually get the ads up here. Okay, that might have been what's happened. So you can see obviously ads are prominent, and then the second part that's really prominent is the Google business section, and then once again all the SEO stuff down below. Now I'm going to jump into this profile and show you the inside, because that's the interesting part. Because I manage this profile, I can actually, there's a button that pops up as soon as I'm logged into my Google profile here, and I can hit manage this business. And what happens now is that I have an option here to, oh, we've got a few more participants, very good. We have an option here now to manage everything. And what I mean by that is you'll have a bunch of buttons here basically. And this used to be different. So Google had a different layout initially, but they've changed this recently, where 6 months ago, they introduced this new layout, and they slowly but surely told people, look, you need to move. We give you 6 months. And about 4 or 5 weeks ago, they've actually made the switch, so we can't go back to the old way of managing things. So whenever you set up your profile, it probably look different than this, but this is unfortunately the new way to do things. Now, what you'll see is a breakdown here. So underneath where it says your business on Google, you have the views, and this is your insights, your analytics, etc., or your performance, which is also a button down here. You go to edit profile. This is essentially where you edit all the aspects of your profile in terms of content, links, any of that kind of stuff. Reviews, once I click on that, you'll see the review field pop up, and this is where you can reply, respond, and engage with some of the reviews. Messages, I'll get to that in a second. Obviously, photos is where you can add product photos, photos of the outside of the business, perhaps, team photos, logos, etc. Advertise is when you click on that, Google is trying to get you to sign up for their Google Ads product. Products, we had a quick look at that before as well. This is essentially where you can add products and items for sale. So that's really where you can almost build like a little online store just purely on your profile. Services, I'll get to that as well. Booking is when you essentially might be a consultant or a counseling service or whatever it might be, and people can actually go online to a calendar and book in with you. And then we have the Q&As, which is essentially when people have specific questions about the business. So somebody might actually send a question like, is there parking available on site, or do you have free Wi-Fi, or whatever it might be. These actually will show up on your profile once people ask them. I think we have one here, which is the questions and answers section, but this wasn't a very relevant one. So this is like a really specific one to somebody. And my client actually didn't answer this because it's like a really, it's a specific question, but quite often you can actually ask questions yourself. And what I would suggest is to make sure that you ask questions that your client always asks you, because when they show up on here, they get the information straight away, and it just makes it much more seamless for them to figure out if they want to get in touch with you, yes or no. Updates is essentially where you can post updates like sort of blog posts, or if you have offers, etc. And then if you want to get more reviews, there's an option here. When you click on that link, there's going to be a static link that you can share with your clients. Now that's just a quick overview, and I'm going to jump into every single one of these, so don't stress. I'm going to just always start off with the insights, and essentially this will give us the performance, and this is going to really show us how well Google Business can work for businesses, right? So this private client, like I said, he's a tile cleaning business, and he probably needs 1 or 2 jobs a day, and then he's happy. Like, he doesn't want to do more. He's pretty happy with that. Now, he only uses Google My Business as his main sort of marketing platform. And because he's always in the top 3, generally speaking, we make sure that, he obviously got there, but essentially he's always booked out probably 6 to 8 weeks in advance all year round, which is crazy, right? So this is a free channel. He gets all his leads through here. He doesn't pay for advertising. He doesn't pay for SEO. He doesn't pay for social media. All of his business comes through this one profile. Now, this doesn't work for every business, and some businesses need more traffic, and obviously, take that with a grain of salt, but in this case, it really works for him. And it'll give you an overview. So first and foremost, we can select the time period, and then we can go through these tabs. And the first one we look at is the engagements or the interactions. And once you log into this, just the little information buttons, if you're not sure what something means, just click on those, and it'll actually show you exactly what you're looking at. So you can see here, this breaks down on a monthly basis, and the interactions that he's had roughly every month, so about 150 a month. And what that means is people that have actually clicked a button or engaged with it. So they might have sent a message, clicked on the view website, phone call, whatever it might be. So he gets about 150 engagements like that every single month on his profile. Now, an interesting part here, 2 different things. So the section underneath is how people discovered you. And this will give you a bit of an insight in terms of, are people looking on mobile devices or desktops, etc. In this case, it's surprising, because usually mobile is more towards 80 or even 90% these days, whereas desktop is a lot smaller these days. But that depends on your business, the type of client. Sometimes when you work with a specific type of client, maybe some older people, quite often desktop might actually come up higher, because people sit down and actually, take some time to do some research. But that's an interesting sort of number to figure out, to see, hey, we actually see there's a lot of engagement on our mobile. We want to make sure that our website and everything is definitely mobile friendly, because if it's not, we're going to miss out on potential sales. Okay. On the right-hand side here, then, we have searches that showed the business profile and search results. And this is essentially keywords that people used on Google that actually triggered the profile to show up. So this is a great source of information, because this is where you can really learn to see what works. Obviously grout cleaning Perth, tiling grout cleaning, tile cleaning Perth, etc. And you can see the rough numbers behind here in terms of how often the profile came up based on the keyword. 1 second, please. Right. Is that... Okay. All right. Yeah, so this is all the search keywords, and essentially the reason you would want to look at this is understanding really what Google seems to think that you're relevant for, what the market is looking for, and then these are the sort of keywords you can then take and incorporate into your website, right? So you can put this in your blog posts, in your pages, or your social media, because essentially this, thanks, Nick. I've only got two, but sometimes it feels like there's four. um, so essentially, this is really good information that you can use because this is the language that your clients are using. And if you use this, they will actually start finding you more on the web simply because you speak in their language. So super handy to have. Sometimes if you go down, you'll see some random keywords that for some reason Google triggered you for, but it's not really something that you do. It could potentially be an opportunity to actually add a new service if that's something that would be you've got any affinity with. All right, so breaking that back down. So that's essentially the first tab here. That's your big overview. Now, the second one here is calls. And calls is when somebody has actually clicked on, let me go back to talk meeting posts. Oh. So calls is when somebody clicks on the profile and then they click on the call button here, or even the phone number down here. And this will obviously look different on a mobile device. So the layout is slightly different, but yeah, essentially everyone who clicks on those buttons will get tracked in this dashboard. So you can see here, roughly 25 to 30 calls a month purely from his profile. And these are all people that are willing to straight away want to get a quote, availability, pricing, etc. So this is really, you can see how this might work, right? And especially when you're in a business that you only need 1 or 2 seals a day, this is why he's booked out consistently, because he does good work, he's fair pricing, his availability is great. So all those things tie in together. But yeah, imagine that 25 to 30 people every single month would just be ringing you out of the blue to say, hey, I'd like to or hire your services. And this doesn't even account the people that go to his website and then click on call me on his website, because this is purely, once again, from the profile. So anybody who goes to the website afterwards and then clicks on call me, that doesn't get accounted in here, but that's basically on top of what he's already getting here. And he's a bit of an old-fashioned guy. He doesn't really want to do the digital stuff, so he's quite happy getting phone calls. And he's got a big black business diary in which he looks and say, okay, I've got these availabilities and that kind of stuff. All right, messages. This is something that you can enable. And once you've enabled this, on your listing, there will be a button that says send message or get quote or something along those lines. And what happens there is essentially a pop-up will show up for the end user. They can send you a quick message and they say, hey, I just want to know a little bit more about so-and-so. Now, this could be somebody who might be in a meeting and they can't actually make a phone call, but an email would be too long to reach out to you. So they just click on chat now. And essentially what happens is you're going to get an email with the address that's associated to your business profile, or you have the Google Maps app installed on your phone that will actually pop up essentially just like on any messenger app, and you can start chatting directly with that person. Now, the reason you would want to enable this, even if you don't have time to directly reply, there is an option to have, for example, automated responses. And an automated response is as soon as somebody starts messaging you, you can send a reply that says, hey, thanks so much for your message. If I don't reply in the next 5 minutes, please call this number or send an email to this email address. And both of those links that you can put in there are clickable, so people can immediately just tap on the screen and take the next step. So it's a really sort of nice catch opportunity. So if somebody doesn't get a response straight away, they know that, hey, I can actually still get in touch with the business if I just take the next step. So this will save a percentage of people who would otherwise drop off if you don't have that option available. We have this turned off and on for him sometimes because he just gets too busy. Like I said, his calls and whatever he's getting at the moment, he's plenty busy. So he doesn't want the extra distractions of getting more messages. But it's definitely something I would recommend if you have the scalability or the capacity to service more clients. Then there's a booking section here. Now, this is, like I said, if you have, for example, an online calendar where people can book in a time slot with you, so that will show up on your profile as well. There will be a link here somewhere that says make a booking. And, depending on the platform you use, like maybe Calendly or something, which is a popular one, let's say you do consulting, you can actually send people directly to your Calendly sign-in page and get them to book into your schedule without even having to visit your website or make a call. So it's super easy. Then the last part here is the website clicks. And this is essentially when people are going to your profile and then click on the website button or on your link. Sometimes there's a link in here. And like I said, they do change their layout from time to time. And depending on the device I'm looking at, the layout might be different as well. Now, you can see on top of all those calls he's getting and potential messages, still a lot of people will just go straight to his website because they want to find out more. So they go to the profile, click on the website, and then they hit his website. And in the website, there's still the same options, right? So people can still make a phone call from the website. They can also still send an email from the website. So he basically, those things don't get tracked in the Google business profile data simply because that's off the profile. And basically that's all on top of what he's already getting in here. So based on the information that you've seen so far, is this something that you think you could use for your business? Is this something that you could see really working in terms of, getting some more leads and basically getting more sales through the door? Yeah, it is brilliant. Yeah, and I think a lot of small businesses are sleeping on this because it's kind of like they treat it as like a like a yellow pages listing. They kind of go like, oh yeah, I'll set a profile up and have some information in case somebody's looking for it. But it's got a lot more options and opportunities attached to it, so you can really make a lot of use out of this. And sometimes, honestly, you don't even need a website anymore. If you have a good profile and you're ranking with your profile, you don't even have to build a website in some cases. Anyway, so if we then start looking at the next section, so I'm going to jump out of this. I hope this is all clear for you guys. Edit profile. So this is, like I said, where we make all the changes. Now, essentially, this is all your data. So this is your name, your address, your phone number, your description, opening hours, all that kind of stuff goes in here. You'll find that you have two options. You got the business category, which is like your main category, and then underneath your categories, you're gonna have services. I sometimes see people trying to add a lot of categories, but essentially what you want to do, you'll have to have two core categories. And I'm just going to show you what this looks like in here. Now, cleaning service was essentially a main category that Google used to use, and they've changed that since. And they're basically asking us to pick the new corresponding top category or the main category they want to use. However, because we're ranking so well and we're like #1 usually across the board, I'm not going to touch anything. This is purely, if it's working, don't fix it. But essentially, what would happen here, if you don't know what sort of category you want to work in, so let's say you're in accounting, right? I think one of you had an accounting firm. So you start typing account, and then you'll see a bunch of suggestions come up. So accountant, accounting firm, accounting school, software company, etc. So I would normally say pick 2, maximum 3 top categories. I'm just going to cancel this. Top categories, because even though you might do a lot more, normally what you want to do is make sure you sort of add those underneath the categories as services. And we'll get to that in a minute. Reason being is that the more top categories you tell Google that you're all about, I think 5 max, essentially you're sort of diluting the focus, and Google kind of goes like, well, you do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that. And essentially, if someone else is trying to rank and compete with you with a more specified category, that probably outrank you. Anyway, stick to 2, maximum 3, I would say. That's normally my rule of thumb. Next section up here is the description. And what I talked about initially as well with the keywords that we looked at, right? So we saw what people are looking at and what sort of keywords they're using. Now, what I would suggest is in this description, make sure you spend some time on this. You've got about 750 characters that you can use. We haven't used all of them, but once again, we're not changing anything because it's ranking really well. Any change we make might impact that negatively, but make sure your description is accurate. And what I mean by that is actually talks about the keywords that people are looking for. So you can see here, for example, Dirty Grout is his actual business name, but then the keyword that we would basically try and implement here is personal towel and grout cleaning, or even grout cleaning specialist, because Google can see based on these keywords, they would actually figure out, hey, sorry, I do towel cleaning, but if somebody would be looking for grout cleaning, we also understand this is the same business. So you can sort of use this as a little bit of an SEO booster if you put the right types of keywords in here. Plus, sometimes you want to add in your location, right? So if it's Perth or Sydney or wherever you are, those are some of the things you can actually add in there as well. Rule of thumb is make sure that it's actually normal copy and people will read it normally. So you don't want to start overdoing it with the keywords. I would normally have 2 or 3 main keywords in there. So the other one that we use down here, tile and grout cleaning, once again, we just weave it into a sentence so it looks natural. However, Google will definitely pick that up and highlight to say, okay, this is definitely tile and grout cleaning. Does that all make sense so far? So really treat this as like an about page almost, where you can be real succinct about the keywords that you do, the services that you offer, the products that you sell, and the locations that you're potentially in. Plus, make sure people can actually just read it without feeling like they're reading a bit of spam. And always make sure that you try to use as much of those characters as you can. Once again, do as I say, not as I do. We're not changing this because it's ranking really well, but normally I would actually have filled that up to 750 characters. And opening date is essentially what will show up when we look at up here. So once again, the first page of Google will have a section that says down here, 10 years in business, right? 10 plus years. And some of these guys are 15 years in business, 5 years in business. It just instills a little bit of additional trust level to say, hey, these guys have been around for a long time. It's not like they're a new business. So all of those things that you see in here, these are important according to Google, because Google understands that these are the main sort of value things that people are looking for. So make sure that you fill that out if you have that available. Contact number is essentially, you can have multiple numbers in here. Some people ask, do I need a local number, a mobile number, a 1-300 number? I would say if you have all three, put all three of them in. Really, people understand these days that mobile devices, mobile numbers are more common than just office numbers or landlines, right? So sometimes people say, well, what if I get a WA number or a New South Wales number, like an 08 or whatever? Yes, it looks more normal, but also a lot of people understand that I can go onto Skype, for example, and just buy a local number somewhere else. So it's not even really that, you can basically bypass that system, and it's like everybody can have a number anywhere in the world. So just make sure you use whatever you're comfortable with there. Website, self-explanatory, just put your homepage link in there, and then that will get found when people click on your website button down here. Now, the other one is the short name. This has been no longer being used. I don't know why Google still has this in there. I'm going to skip it because basically we won't be able to use it. This used to be like a Google username, essentially, kind of like you would have on Twitter or Facebook, but yeah, they don't use it anymore. All right, business location. This is also a question I often get. So essentially there's a slide here, and what that slide lets you do is you can either show your address details, like let's say you've actually got a physical brick and mortar and people come in and it's your place of business. Make sure that you have your address up here. Sometimes people work from home these days, or they might have a PO box, which is absolutely fine as well. However, then you want to make sure that, sometimes people just don't want to know that where people live, and you can actually just turn that off. Now, obviously, my client here works from home because that's where he does his admin stuff, but then he's on the road and just visits his clients. So people ask me, well, if you hide that, how does Google know where you're located when people search for like near me? So this is where the service areas comes in. And the service area basically will tell Google, hey, these are the areas that I'm actually servicing my clients in. So obviously that is different for every business. Now, what I would normally recommend is to have the main location of your operations. So, obviously close to the business, close to home, wherever you sort of want to work, but always add in the major city as well. So in this case, that would be Perth, because, Google understands that Perth quite often gets used as, it's not just the Perth CBD. Perth is like the entire city with all the suburbs and areas included. If you're online and you can service all of Australia, basically just put in all of Australia. So you can basically literally put in Australia in here and select that as the main option. All right, cool. So make sure you have that set up because this will really help Google understand where they should show your listing when somebody searches for near me. Because if you don't have that suburb listed in there, or even like the sort of the catch-all, which is the main city, Google might have a harder time to figure out when to show your listing if somebody is looking in those locations. Does it all make sense? Should make sense, hopefully. Otherwise, I'm talking gibberish, but we'll see. All right. Yeah, you can do that, but if you do Australia-wide, that basically just catches everything anyway. So I would probably do it that way if you go nationwide. Now, if you go into city suburbs, reason being that if this is a service-based business where it's call-outs, you basically want to go down the route of adding those suburbs plus the overarching main city, because it just really amplifies to Google that, hey, yes, we do Perth, but specifically within Perth, these are the areas we would go for. All right. Opening hours. Opening hours is important simply because there's nothing worse than going onto Google Maps on a Saturday afternoon and you want to go visit a store and it says, "Hey, we're open till 5 o'clock." Great. We'll drive down half an hour and they're closed for whatever reason. It's a bad experience for the customer. It potentially could trigger a negative review. Could potentially trigger a somebody making a complaint to Google to say, "Hey, this listing is incorrect." And the more sort of marks you get against your listing, so the more often people complain or say it's inaccurate, the more the chances that you have is that you're going to drop down from where you were ranking initially. So you want to make sure that this is always up to date, and always keep in mind that this is essentially your calling card or your business card that people will see online, and it needs to be accurate, because if it's not, Google is going to basically drop you. Not drop you as in like remove you, but you're definitely going to get pushed down. Holiday hours, etc. You can easily just jump in here and basically say, well, here's the defaults for Christmas Day, Boxing Day, New Year's Eve, and etc. So you might have an additional holiday that is not listed on here, so you can always add your own dates. Yeah, so make sure that if you have any specific hours as well, you can just add those in to say, look, I'm a single business and I'm going to go on holiday to Bali for 2 weeks. I'm not going to take any clients. Just put it in here to make sure that people understand, because as soon as you update it in here, next time somebody will look on Google and instead of saying, "Hey, closes at 5 p.m., it'll actually say closed. So people will not click on it. People won't visit you in that time period. Once again, make sure you do that because you don't want to get negative reviews or you don't want to get flagged. All right, add more hours. This is usually for hospitality, kitchen, takeaway, happy hour, breakfast, etc. So unless you've got a hospitality business, I wouldn't really do anything with this. Then you can have some additional bits and pieces. So the more section from the business. Now, this is quite often whatever is hot in the news at the moment politically, like even with COVID, for example, like even a year ago, there was a bunch of other options in here. Like, they would say you're not allowed to come into a store without a mask, or you need to have an appointment, or so keep an eye on this. So whenever something big happens, quite often Google will make an additional option here. And then, yeah, you can say, for example, identify as women-owned. Some people will actually shop specifically for that kind of shop. So if that works for you, then by all means, make sure that you make use of these things. Planning, so appointment required. So let's say you've got a consulting business and people can't just walk in, make sure that it actually highlights with a note to say, look, you can't walk in, you need to make an appointment. Here's the booking links, for example. Service options, if you do online estimates, yes or no. And this, like I said, will change from time to time. So keep an eye on it. Maybe once a month, just jump in there to see if there's anything new or if they've removed anything. All right, so that's essentially your business information, right? And that's all the information that we can give Google. And this will obviously be part of getting ranked really well. So optimizing really comes down to making sure that this is all filled out correctly, in full, and you make use of every single thing that Google asks you for, because the more info you give them, the more likely it is that they're going to prefer your business over a profile that's only been filled out halfway. All right, now, next section here, I want to jump, I'm just going to go left to right. So read reviews. Read reviews is really about, okay, obviously people leave a review, and as a business owner, you'll have a few options to hit reply or like. You can sort of get a good gauge on, what people say about your business. Once again, a quick sort of tip or hack is you can jump into these reviews and you can look at some of the keywords. Once again, the messaging that people use, because, for example, our floor was pretty grimy. I would have never used the word grimy, but if obviously people are looking for that, I would have maybe in my website somewhere along the lines of, are you tired of looking at your grimy floor? Or, we make grimy floors look like new. Just incorporating the keywords, the messaging, the language that your clients are already using into your website will really help you get found quicker. Does that make sense? So really use it as a learning point. So, and it's not just about the review itself, it's really about what are the words that I'm using. Now, the cool thing with this is obviously they can upload photos, etc. as well, which will then show up in your photo section, which is like, hey, these are done by the owner, these are done by clients. And obviously my client's product here lends itself incredibly well to photos because it's before and afters, which always makes a huge difference in terms of people looking and going, okay, that looks fantastic, I want some of that too. But usually, the reviews, it'll actually tell you here, value, punctuality, quality of the job, whatever sort of keywords. And Google will quite often give you a little bit of indication here as well, what they believe is important. So obviously they want to know, is this valuable for people in terms of, the cost versus outcome? Punctuality, does this business always come in on time? Well, did they do a good job? How responsive were they to messages and phone calls, etc.? So this will give you an indication what Google really looks at to see what's important for our users. And that's something that you need to take into account, because Google only wants to make sure that they give people the right type of results on the search. So the more you basically give Google what they want, the better you start ranking. All right, now there's an option up here which says get more reviews. So if you click on that, there will be a little pop-up, and this will give you a link, a review link. So this link, make sure you make a copy, take a note of this. And what I would normally suggest, I'll actually show what that does, right? So back in the day, not even that long ago, when you would have a client, you'd say, hey, can you leave me a review on Google? They say, yeah, sure, no worries. But then the problem was they would have to go to Google, log in, search for your business, go to Maps, go to the review section, click on add review. And it was a whole, jump through 5, 6, 7 different clicks before they can actually give you a review. And the problem is, as we all know, like if people have to think and do things, quite often, like you'll have a big drop off because it's too hard. They do it throw it in the do later basket or whatever you want to call it. So if you give people an option to go straight to your review page, so let me just copy that link that I just showed you here. And what happens here is it'll immediately pop up straight off in the review form section. So as you can imagine, somebody doesn't have to look anywhere, that you can just click and they can straight up get into the review. They can leave, like I said, the quality, attributes, etc. And then they fill in the review, they can add a photo and post that. So this really makes it a lot easier for somebody to say, yes, I'll leave you a review, and actually leave you a review. I'm just going to cancel this because obviously we don't want to leave a review for ourselves. Yeah, so make sure that you copy that link. Every business profile has its own unique link. Some of the things you can do with this is you can actually create a QR code that links to this link, and for example, put it onto the counter desk. Or you might have something that actually, just give me 1 second, please. No, can you please leave? I'm not ready yet. Sorry. So that basically means that the people who are, for example, let's get a dentist. They might go to the dentist, and they, nobody wants to go to the dentist to leave a 5-star review unless they've actually had a good, their pain's gone. If they're paying at the counter and there will be a QR code, hey, we'd love to get a review. While they're waiting, they can actually just take a photo and then immediately review on their phone, and it works really, really well. So the easier you make it for somebody to leave you a review, the more reviews you're going to be able to get. Does that make sense? One of the other things you can do with that link as well is I would add that to every single touch point that you have with a customer after the job's been completed. So this might be a receipt, an invoice, any of those sort of documents that you might be sending through. That should be coming up here. So people can always have that reminder to say, hey, please click here, leave me a review. Fantastic. Thank you very much. All right, so let me close this up here. And how are we for time? We still got about 20 minutes, and I'm not talking to myself. No, everybody's still here. Very good. Just checking. Okay, any questions so far? Because I think we covered quite a bit in the last 40 minutes, but I want to make sure that you're all aware of, how this can work for you. And if you've already had some light bulb moments, perhaps, or if there's anything that you really want to know a little bit more about, but just let me know in the chat and I'll answer those as soon as I can. All right, messages. I'm just going to jump into that one real quick. Now, messages is the option that I just mentioned initially, where you can get people to send you messages. Can you add a link to your Etsy shop? No, I'm not sure. Can you rephrase that, Brandon? Because I'm not sure. You can add a link to your Etsy shop on your profile. Yes, if that's your main store, you can definitely add that on. No, not so much your Facebook and Instagram accounts, because it's really your main business that you want to send people to. And then you can have an additional link, which would be your booking link. Can you email the review link to your new clients? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And this is something I quite often recommend, to say, hey, write a little email and say, hey, it's been a while since we worked together and I would love to hear what you think about my business. Here's a link. If you'd be so inclined to leave me a review, people are quite often quite happy. Just make sure you send it to the happy customers and then send it to angry customers. Thanks, Nick. Yeah. Usually I get a good response on these webinars. All right, cool. So essentially the messaging section, and you can see we've sort of turned it off for him a while ago, and but what you would normally get is, let's say the messaging section has been turned on and somebody would actually click on get quote or send message. Essentially what you would get as the business owner or the profile owner is, in this case, a quote request. So it'll already highlight what sort of service they're looking for, what time and availability, what location, etc., and then some information, and essentially you get their phone number. And what happens there is that obviously my client Scott can see that message straight away, and he can either just click on that number straight away and give him a call, or he can respond as the business, either way, whatever works for you. And you can see quite often these messages come through, and usually Scott would answer it, hey, look, it's best to call me on this number because I'm just fully booked consistently. Now, some of the things you can do here, let me just move this out of the way because I'm not sure if you guys can see that. You should be able to see that. So when you get to the messages section, the top right-hand side, if you click on the three little dots, there's a chat settings option, and this might look different on your phone, by the way. So just play around with it a little bit. But essentially, when the chat's turned on, technically, you can have that welcome message here that I mentioned before. And in this case, we just said, hey, the best way to reach me at the moment is to call me on this number if you're looking for a quote. And what happens is this number here will be linked. So somebody will send a message, gets an instant reply, and then there's a link they can click if they want to make a phone call or send a text message, for example. Messages will come through in, once somebody sends a message, you'll get an email notification say so-and-so has just sent you a message. The old app would actually have a chat built in, which meant that on your phone, you could use that app, the Google My Business app, to directly respond. However, if you have the Google Maps app on your phone right now, I think that's where you can actually have the same thing now. So just double check that. If you have the Google Maps app, when you enable your chat, just have a test, and I'm pretty sure it'll come straight through there. Yeah, it is perfect, right? So because this is really about making sure you give somebody a next step. So even though they basically send you a message and then you might not have read it yet, so you can send a read receipt if you wanted to. Most people will be understanding that you haven't replied yet if you haven't read it yet, but as soon as you read it and they see that, hey, it's been 5 minutes, obviously this message will be in front of them and they can then decide whether they want to give you a call, yes or no, because quite often they understand businesses are busy, right? All right, and then you can actually build on top of that. So you have your frequently asked questions. Now, these are not the same as the Q&As on the profile itself. These are purely questions that are being asked in chat. So you can have some questions in here. So obviously you can see is, suggest questions that people can ask your business when they start a chat. They set up automated responses to those questions. So you can say here, for example, like I said before, is there parking available on the premises? Or and then you can have a reply that says, yes, you can, we got 10 spots around the back, or 2 streets over, you can go there, or whatever sort of questions that you normally get from your clients, you can already automatically respond. Because what happens when they send you that message, it'll have these questions already filled in to say, which question would you like to ask? They can tap on that question and the automated response comes through straight away. So this is a really helpful way to, when you're in a shopping center, for example, and you might be one of the stores within a large shopping mall, then you can say, hey, we're right between Kohl's and JB Hi-Fi or something, wherever you're sort of located. So people can immediately understand, oh, I know roughly where that is, because people usually know where the big stores are, not so much where the smaller stores are. So whatever works for you, make sure that you fill that out. All right, now jumping quick in here, just wary of the time. So photos is obviously very self-explanatory. You can just upload photos in there. And the reason why this is important, and I don't think I can show you this anymore with the new layout. Let's have a quick look if that still exists. No. Is it up here? No. So some of these photos are like super plain, right? And I think one of the ones that he had here was like a hand mopping up some pizza, spilled pizza or something. I can't find it now. It's somewhere in there. But we would actually be able to see the statistic or the stats and the data to say how many people saw this photo. Now, if I tell you that all these types of photos here, like super boring, here you go. So one of these or this one, I think this one was up since 2016 or 14, 15 even. And this has had 64,000 impressions on Google. So when somebody is on Google and searches for, once again, say tile cleaning or tile cleaning Perth, this is Bing. Why are we on Bing? And essentially the reason you want to use images is when somebody searches on this, on the very top, obviously the default is the all section for Google, but then images is quite often where people are searching as well for products, because they might not necessarily know what they're looking for and they want to sort of have a visual representation. Now, you can see there's a lot of those similar photos up here, right? If I would click on one of these, then I'll go like, oh, that's an interesting photo. I'll click on it. Reason being is because that's basically ranking in Google. If I click on that again, now this is going to take me to their website straight away. And obviously there's like a free quote. So this is an immediate sort of attention capturing process. So I highly recommend it that whatever photos you have based on your product and your business, make sure you have as many photos up there as you can, simply because you're going to start getting clicks in Google image search and potential more business. All right, now performance we just went through, that's essentially the same link as this one up here. Advertise, once again, that's when you want to start running ads on Google. So you can click on that. And I think they got a $600 offer at the moment, where if you spend $600 as a new account, you're going to get $600 in credit. Products, quick look at those. So products, once again, you can add a product, and this could be very basic, a photo description type of category. Now, obviously, this will be different for everyone's business. You can have a price range, or you can have an actual set price, and you can have a button that says, hey, get offer, learn more, and you can add on a link to say this will be the checkout link, for example, right? So people could even go directly in your profile, browse through your catalog of products, and they can click, yes, I want this, and it immediately goes to the checkout on your website, instead of actually having, to sort of start that shopping process again. So super handy if you want to use this. Added services is essentially what I just mentioned before as well. So you'll have your top categories. So stick to 2 or 3 main categories, even one if that's purely the one that you want to go for. But then underneath those, you can have as many sort of services as you like, right? So obviously services will technically be used as keywords. So when people are looking for, once again, grout restoration, because we use this as a service within our actual profile, chances are that Google is going to see this and say, hey, if somebody looks at grout restoration in Perth, we know that this is one of their services. So this is a good place to really have some of those keywords implemented, because this will not really sort of like, it won't look spammy on your profile because it doesn't really show up unless you really click on the services page, but it still gets counted against what you're all about, and Google will definitely use this information. Once again, there's some changes happening here, and we need to accept certain things, but once again, we're not changing anything because we're ranking well, so we'll leave everything as is. But yeah, keep that in mind as well. Once you have services that you might no longer provide, or you add additional services, always make sure that you keep up to date with whatever you have in there, because Google will look at that and basically make a decision if they're going to rank you, yes or no. The booking page, like I said, this is essentially where you can get a link to put a booking URL in. So if you're a hair salon, for example, here you can have a bookings link or whatever it might be. Google is working on a booking or an appointment app by itself as well. So don't be surprised if eventually they will allow you to build that in directly into your entire Google business profile as well. All right, we got the Q&As we mentioned briefly before. What I would do here is similar to your frequently asked questions in your automated chat. I would add questions in here that people ask you all the time, because essentially, well, not only will people see your profile and get their questions answered straight away, it will also, once again, give you the opportunity to add additional keywords. So really, once again, amplify those keywords that you reiterate to Google, hey, this is really the service and the type of product and the location we're in. And you can easily ask them yourself, because as the owner, it'll actually show up that the owner posted that question, and people will understand that, hey, this is just the owner telling us that these are frequently asked questions. So don't be afraid to put your questions in there. All right, updates are basically 3 options at the moment. So you can have an update, which is essentially like maybe a news article, or let's say you've got new product happening, or new opening hours, or you've moved locations, or whatever, there's roadworks happening, so people need to take a detour, whatever sort of information you want to put in here, just make sure that you put it in there. So that's that's basically an update for, like I said, newsworthy stuff. Then offers would be an option where you can actually add an offer to say, look, as you can see the example here, 20% off in the store today or online. You can have a product photo in here. You can have the start and end date of when that promotion is running. You can have the details down here, so you can basically put in whatever, based on what you're trying to offer is relevant. Voucher codes, if you have a system that uses voucher codes, obviously a link to redeem the offers, so they can go directly to the checkout once again, and then you've got your terms and conditions, maybe like, only maximum 1 person or something, whatever you want to use as an option. This will also show up on your profile, so people will look at your profile and then underneath they'll see current offers, and that might attract them to actually make the decision to go through and purchase something. And then events. Now this could be you might have a workshop, you might have a gathering, you might have whatever sort of event you might be running for your business. If there's anything that you do, the same thing as the offers, you could put in the start time, end time, event details, options here to say, well, call now, because depending on the option that I choose here, you'll see that the bottom one changes, right? So if I select book, it'll ask me for my booking link, but if I select call now, it'll ask me what phone number should I put in here. Now, the phone number is the one that you've actually used with the Google My Business profile when you set that up. So make sure that that's all correct. And yeah, that's pretty straightforward as well. Add a nice photo, and this will also show up on your profile when people look at this. And yeah, it makes all the difference in terms of people clicking yes or no. Cool. Let me just see if we got everything. All right, so a few more things before we wrap up. So you got a couple of cards underneath here, and essentially these are usually the same type of links or buttons that you see here. It's just Google is trying to sort of shuffle the order of the cards to try to get you to take some action. So it'll ask here, turn more reviews into customers. So when we click on that, all it basically does is it'll basically ask us to add our services, and this is their layout to get back into the services section to make those changes that they were recommending, for example. So just keep an eye on these links here. They do change from time to time. Once again, get more reviews will be in there, which is the same one that we just looked at where it says ask for reviews. So some of these are basically just duplicate links, but in a different form, if that makes sense. Get a custom email address. That basically means sign up for Google Workspace. So you basically get like Gmail for a business, which highly recommended if you're using a lot of email. And yeah, so that's really it. So you got the updates there. Once again, this does change from time to time, and layouts will change. But yeah, that's basically in a nutshell Google My Business. Now, before we go, I'm going to give you a tool that I highly recommend. Now, to get ranked really well, first and foremost, you obviously need to optimize your profile like we just looked at and make sure that all the information is correct, up to date, accurate, and fully filled out, and you use it as keywords, etc. The second part of ranking is getting citations. Now, what a citation is nothing more than I'll show you an example. Yellow Pages. I don't know if anybody still remembers these guys. But for example, Yellow Pages, and there's a whole lot of these types of business directories online, right? So essentially all it is, if I'd be looking for, let's say, a lawyer in the Gold Coast here. So a citation is nothing more than a listing on one of these types of websites, because what Google looks for mainly is name, address, and phone number. So your NAP details. So your name in this case would be your business name. Then we got the address, which will be in here somewhere as well. Like every site sort of does this differently, but these are probably too big, so they probably have a lot of locations. Let me find a smaller one. Tile cleaner. I know, Melbourne tile cleaners. Let's have a look. Yep. Okay, so I figure out one of these. So obviously the name, Melbourne Roof Tile Trading. Address 24 Bell Street, Preston, Victoria, and then P for phone number, that number. So these are the details that Google will look at and consistently keep track of a lot of these business directories to see, are they all talking about the same details? So as long as your details are consistent across the board, and you've got a lot of these citations, it'll tell Google, it basically signals to them that there's a high level of trust and a high level of accuracy across the board. So they're going to favor your listing over somebody who might have just a handful of citations or have different address details across the board. And in order for you to get this done, the tool recommendation that I make, there's a site called Bright Local. The Bright Local is essentially a tool specifically built to help you rank your Google My Business profile. Now, it works twofold. The first thing is you can connect up your Google My Business profile with your account, and it'll give you a whole bunch of information in terms of, okay, here's some suggestions in terms of the keywords you're trying to rank for. Here's what your competitors are ranking for. These are the areas that they're ranking in. So you can see here a little bit, like there's a whole bunch of information around basically how you're performing. The second thing that's really important, what these guys offer that I haven't seen anywhere else before, is there's an option to build citations. And that is basically you give them an information sheet full of the information that any of those directories might request, because they're all slightly different in the way they're built. But essentially, they'll ask you, where are we? They'll ask you, give me all the information that we potentially need to put into a listing for you. And they will go away, manually do those listings for you on the sites that you request those listings on. And they charge $2 or $3 per listing. So you can imagine that instead of you spending half an hour or an hour trying to find all these sites and signing up and confirming your emails and putting all the details in, it's really, really easy to get this done through these guys. It is gold, absolutely. So this saves a lot of time. And normally what I would recommend is if you even start off with 15 or 25 citations per month, right? So you can just manually order these with these guys. They will go out and build them. It usually takes them a couple of weeks before it's all sort of live, because depending on how quickly they get verified and that kind of stuff. But yeah, this is a great way to slowly build up the citations. Now, it doesn't only just work for your Google My Business profile, but also because some of these sites will actually have links to your website, as you might know. So these sort of links will actually help your overall SEO performance as well. And you can see, for example, here, so I want to get my client, he's obviously number one in terms of Google My Business. But if you scroll a little bit down, so we did some SEO from a few years ago, and we haven't done anything probably 3 or 4 years now. So he's slightly dropping off, but he also has an organic listing on the first page for the same terms. And this is obviously, 2 options for him to actually get that click. So even though if somebody might not have clicked on here on the business profile, he still even gets traffic through here as well. So he used to be number 2 and 1 for that as well. But yeah, like I said, we haven't done any real SEO for him because he doesn't need it, right? He's got his business profile, and he doesn't need to spend money trying to get that ranked as well. Anyway, so back to brightlocal.com. Definitely use these guys, right? So their pricing is really, really, in terms of comparing it against a lot of other tools, this is really affordable. They have a list that they consistently update in terms of how many listings there are in Australia, but they basically say, look, when you do your order, your citation tracking, they will basically give you options to say, where would you like to get listed? And they're ranking from most important to least important. There's a few hundred at least. So you have plenty of sort of space to sort of slowly, organically build up those citations as you go. The trick is not to just order like every single one of them in a day, because then Google's going to go, hey, all of a sudden, like there's a whole bunch of these links. What's going on here? It's a bit of a red flag. So just sort of gradually 15 to 25 a month for a couple of months, just build that out. The thing is, with the dashboard, you can actually keep track of your keyword ranking, and you can see if these citations are actually making you jump up in the rankings. And then, yeah, it's a great tool. The other good thing about this versus something like Yext, for example, which is a big American company who does something similar, is when you quit Yext, when you stop paying Yext, they will pull all your listings, whereas these guys will just leave your listings up and running. So even if you cancel the $29 a month thing, your listings are always going to be there. You're really just paying for access to the tool here that gives you the baseline, the ranking measurements, what your competitors are doing, etc. So it's a month-by-month thing. Highly recommend it. They've got a 14-day trial as well. If you want to learn more about local SEO, they've got an insights tab here where they do a lot of webinars, because obviously we can only cover so much in an hour. Even though I talk fast, I can't get everything in there. But you can jump in here and get some insights and really, really understand how this all works and how you can basically beat the competition. All right, so that's brightlocal.com. We're not affiliated with them in any shape or form, and it's just a recommendation I make pretty much at least 5 times a week to small businesses, and they all, mind blown, because this is such a great tool and a channel to use that it's crazy how many people are still sleeping on this. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing now because we're pretty much out of time. But if there's any questions, now is the time to ask me. If you still have questions after the session, just feel free to email me at bob@businessstation.com.au. Then I can help you out with those. But other than that, you're very welcome, Brenda. I hope this was useful. I hope you found some insights, and you're gonna make some use of this, because once again, this is a great channel that is a lot of opportunity that a lot of people are missing out on at the moment, and it doesn't cost much, if anything. Do you do the one in BizStation? No, that was already done before I'm an advisor, so they have a marketing team internally. So I don't really do much with the BizStation one. I probably should, but no, that's not really my role at the moment. Optimization is really about once it's completely optimized in terms of the evergreen content, like stuff that doesn't change. Updates, obviously, I would recommend maybe 1 or 2 updates a month at least. And the citations are probably the thing that really will move the needle for you. So I would focus more on building citations rather than anything else. Cool. I'll put my email address in here because I think not everybody picked that up. There is my email address. Like I said, feel free to send me an email. And having said that, it is time. I have to go to jump into another client. You're very welcome. And I might see you in the next one. So I do this once every 2 weeks. Next week, I'm going to do Facebook advertising and how to run Facebook ads properly and that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in that, make sure you check out our events page and I might see you there as well. All right. Thanks so much for your time today. Enjoy the rest of your week. Goodbye.